The Ecowas Community Court of Justice has delivered a landmark judgment ruling that the Federal Republic of Nigeria violated the human rights of 3 individuals. The first is Obianuju Ude, also Perpetual Kamsi, and Dabira Olua Adeyinka in the 2020 ENDSARS protest. The court found Nigeria in violation of multiple articles of African Charter on Human and People's Rights, including the right to life, security, freedom of expression, assembly and association, and the prohibition of torture.
The court has also ordered the federal government to pay each applicant 2 million naira in compensation for the violations, emphasizing the state's duty to investigate and provide effective remedies for human rights breaches. The violations occurred during the peaceful protest at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos on October 20 and 21, 2020. This morning, we're joined by legal practitioner Mojirayo Ogunlana-Nkanga. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on your show this morning.
All right, we'd like you to share with us an overview of the case and the court's verdict and how you perceive the dispensation of justice in this matter.
Okay, so I just wanted to correct something that is going on around. I think that misconception came from the reporting from maybe somebody from the Ecowas courts. And I think it's an error that anyone can make. Actually, the court found Nigeria in violation of 5 different provisions, or 5 different violations, right? And in all the 5 different violations, for instance, the violation of Article 9, 10, and 11, the court awarded compensation 2 million naira each for the applicants when it found the Nigerian government in breach of its duty to protect the applicants from torture. It went ahead and added 2 million naira each for the applicants. So when it held that there was no access to effective remedy for the applicants, it went for that to compensate the applicants with 2 million naira each. When it said that the applicants were not given an opportunity for reparations, it also granted the applicants compensation 2 million naira each, and then in general damages for everything that they have suffered the violations, it still granted them 2 million naira each. So they were 2 million naira each at 5 different instances, meaning that each of the applicants was awarded 10 million naira each. So it's a total of 30 million naira each that the court granted to the applicants. And I was in court and I took note of that. Although so I saw that the reporting has been skewed a bit. So I just wanted to correct that. So I think one of the things that we can say clearly is that the ECOWAS court considered exactly the facts, not only the fact of the case. The ECOWAS court was able to watch our videos, our uncontroverted, evidence before the court. These particular videos went through forensic analysis to prove the genuineness of the videos, and which showed that gunshots were other bullets were shot into the crowd of unarmed civilians who were exercising their right to peaceful demonstration. So the court actually analyzed all this, and the court saw that we had that our allegations were substantiated by the evidence that we provided before the court. And so this was one court that was upholding justice, and this is just what it is for us and for the applicants, and I'm sure for several victims who felt like foolish, for instance, because we all, I think, witnessed that the government denied this consistently, and even when they filed their responses before the court, they continued to deny and even claimed that these unarmed innocent people who were only carrying flags, and we all saw this consistently on TV, that these people were hoodlums. And the court did not find any, they didn't even substantiate with any evidence. No evidence was even provided to court to actually prove that the people that you shot at were hoodlums, because what the court had were peaceful protesters on the streets of Lagos and who converged at the Lekki toll gate. And so that was exactly what the court found against the Nigerian government. And that there's no other way to say it. This is justice. This is justice, you know? And then, you know, looking at it from the perspective of a legal practitioner, you know, this is one step of closure for the victims or for every other person who is out there who has been unable to find some kind of peace since the moment that this event took place, especially when you were told that what you experienced was not what you experienced. And, you know, and the news went all around, you know, so I think this is justice delivery.
It did.
And I wish that, you know, we could get to that point in our national, jurisprudence where we can say this is justice delivery.
It did. I could tell how excited you are, especially explaining and helping us get a closure on what really took place in the court. Thank you for that, by the way. But now this has happened. Can you say that the youths have eventually been vindicated when we put at par? We do recall the former special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari. I'm talking about Femi Adesina, who said the gunshots were doctored, that the gunshots were doctored. And then you did have other politicians who did come out to also say that such things never happened. What does this mean, especially for the Court of Justice here in Nigeria? This time, when we're talking about Ecowas, what does this mean? Looking at it in relating what took place, how ECOWAS court has been able to interpret and also brought out the verdict. What does this mean for the court system, the judicial system here in Nigeria?
Okay, so I should tell you one thing. You know, at some point, the Nigerian government said it set up a panel that was led by Justice Okwobi, and we had a very erudite senior advocate of Nigeria on that panel, who also was very fortunate to assess the evidence that was brought before them. Now, one of the things that I love about the ECOWAS court was that, oh yes, Nigeria actually set up a quasi-judicial mechanism to look into the violations, but it is unable to be convinced that this particular quasi-mechanism was independent. And so it felt that it was a questionable issue where a quasi-judiciary mechanism was instituted and there was no implementation of the results or whatever came out from that mechanism. So there was no independence. And of course, that means there was no sincerity. And so for someone who had litigated consistently before the ECOWAS court, despite the challenges, I need to say that there can be challenges when it comes to the enforcement of the judgment of the ECOWAS court. But I see a court that is willing to give justice to the people. A court that will tell the people, this is how it is. You see justices who have vast knowledge of international law. They know what the international human rights standards should be. And they are willing, and without fear or favor, they go ahead to dispense justice the way it should be dispensed. So can I say that the judiciary in Nigeria is completely free from the influence of the executive government, executive government, for instance? Can I say that, boldly? Can I say that confidently? Would a Nigerian who had approached the court at the same time that we did have gotten the kind of judgments that we got? These are questions that even I, as a lawyer, would say, because I have had some successes. Let's not take away from that. For instance, the Abuja rape case, there was a judge who was bold enough at the Federal High Court in Abuja who held that in 6 different cases and awarded compensation and said the Nigerian police had violated the rights of this woman and these women, and of course all the agencies that we sued, and there was no kind of any issue. But when you're looking at the magnitude of what the ENDSARS stood for, and the audacity of the Nigerian government to first call the CNN a lie, for the forensic analysis of the bullets that we all watched, Two, to say that the video, a live streamed video, was doctored. So when you look at the audacity of a government coming out that way, then you look at the kind of experiences that, you know, that followed that period for the judiciary, or prior to that period, where with an ex parte application, the Chief Justice of Nigeria was removed from his seat. So you would understand the complications, that we may not have been very, you know, confident that we would have gotten the same kind of judgments coming from our national court. So the ECOWAS court has kept the standard, and we as Nigerians, as media, we must continue to protect the integrity of the ECOWAS court.
Still speaking about the integrity of the ECOWAS court. Still speaking about the integrity of the ECOWAS court, there are those who have expressed some level of concern that the ECOWAS, as a regional bloc, the chairman of the ECOWAS regional bloc is the current president of Nigeria, where this harm was done, and of course, who was a part of the party that was in office, or the party that was in leadership when this wrong occurred. So there are those who express concerns about the ability or the implementation of this court's judgment, the ECOWAS court judgment. Is that something to be worried about?
Okay, so that is something that I want us to constantly put in the back of our minds. Even the president of that particular court has called out state governments and actually, well, how do I say, appeal to them to comply and implement the judgments that come from the court. That has been a challenge. I think I mentioned that earlier. It is a challenge in the sense that you see, for instance, recently the AGF came out and gave a kind of statement which seemed to be that, oh, the ECOWAS court just gives judgments that may not be in tally with the position of Nigeria or something. There was that kind of communication, which of course shows that the government is still reluctant in accepting to be bound by the decisions of the court. But interestingly, each of these governments, let's say, all signed the ECOWAS treaty, where they all, how do I say, all, I don't want to use the word swore, they all chose to be bound by the ECOWAS treaty, by the rules of the ECOWAS court, and they owe the obligation under that ECOWAS treaty to implement every judgment that comes from the court. So while we may, as lawyers or as the citizens, may be looking at the fact that, oh, you can't easily go and enforce the judgment of the ECOWAS court, I think the heat should be taken to the government.
All right.
We should be calling out the government, each and every one of the governments. That is the duty of citizens and the media. We should be calling out the government that you signed. Nobody put a gun to your head to sign to a particular treaty or to sign or establish a court of the economic community and then refuse to be bound by it. If you had signed onto that particular revised treaty, then it is your duty as a government to also abide by whatever decision comes from that court. So this is what media should be partnering with the Nigerian public to hold the Nigerian government, to hold West African governments in general bound, to hold them accountable.
We've run out. We need to move on from this conversation as quickly as possible. In 10 seconds, do you think that now that the judgment has been given, that the lives of these people, for example, the life of Obianuju, popularly known as DJ Switch, do you think she can maybe have her life returned to her in some measure, the freedom that she expressed or experienced in Nigeria before the ENDSARS 2020 protest, as quickly as possible? Yes,
this is a justification for her. This judgment is a justification. This judgment shows that our client was, we say it's a vindication, sorry. He has shown that she's vindicated because she, for instance, expressed that she sat down and listened to these judgments and then she felt some kind of peace in her heart because it made her feel validated that whatever she had reported was exactly the way it came about. And I think that is a closure for her in one aspect. And and it's another way for her to freely move, for instance. But we should never forget that there is a reality in Nigeria. We know that the level of injustice is very, very high. And I'm speaking formed the bar, I'm speaking as a legal practitioner because I've seen injustice. I've seen manifest injustice in this country, even in Abuja. So we cannot take away that reality. And that reality can be in two folds. I will tell you one. During the ENDSARS protest, we saw people who were paid 500 naira.
We need to go now. Mojirayo Ogunlana-Nkanga, we need to leave now. Thank you so much. We hope to have you again, as this is an ongoing conversation, because we must need to keep holding the government to account, because they've of course signed to be a part of this. So thank you so much for joining us this morning.